The billionaire was about to sign his bankruptcy at 4 a.m., until a waitress spotted the mistake. Blood dripped from Marcus Cole's trembling hand onto the bankruptcy papers. He hadn't even noticed cutting himself on the broken whiskey glass. In 12 hours, the financial empire he'd built from nothing would officially collapse, unless the miracle he'd stopped believing in somehow materialized before dawn. "More coffee, sir?" The waitress's voice barely registered as she approached his corner booth in the empty diner. What Marcus didn't know was that this woman, working the graveyard shift to put herself through accounting school, was about to change everything. And the secret hidden in the documents spread before him would shock them both. 3 months earlier, Marcus had everything: a $4.2 billion tech company, a Manhattan penthouse, and his face on the cover of Forbes. Now, at 42, he sat alone in a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of Chicago, about to lose it all. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," said Ellie, sliding a fresh cup of coffee across the table. Marcus glanced up, noticing her for the first time, mid-30s, tired eyes but a kind smile, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Just the weight of my own stupidity," he muttered. "Mind if I ask what's got a guy in a $1,000 suit looking like he's planning his own funeral at 4 a.m.? He laughed bitterly. "More like the funeral of everything I've built." He gestured to the stack of papers. "By this time tomorrow, I'll be signing over my company to vultures who've been circling for months." What Marcus didn't realize was that across town, his CFO, the man he'd trusted like a brother, was celebrating with champagne, toasting to the success of his elaborate scheme to bring down the billionaire who had once saved him from financial ruin. "I shouldn't be bothering you with this," Marcus said, gathering the papers. "I'm actually pretty good with numbers," Ellie offered. 3 years into my accounting degree. Not that you'd want some diner waitress looking at your fancy business documents." Something in her straightforward manner made him pause. "Knock yourself out," he said, sliding the bankruptcy filing across the table. "Maybe fresh eyes will see something my high-priced lawyers missed." Ellie sat down, scanning the documents with surprising speed. Her brow furrowed as she flipped between pages. "This doesn't add up," she said finally, pointing to a column of figures. "These numbers here, they don't match what's referenced in the appendix. And this interest calculation is way off." Marcus leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" "Someone's cooking your books, and they're not even being subtle about it. Look here, and here." She pointed to several discrepancies. "These aren't mistakes. This looks deliberate." The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. James. His CFO. His friend. The man who had suggested the restructuring that had supposedly failed. "If what you're saying is true," Marcus whispered, "then my company isn't bankrupt at all." "Not even close," Ellie confirmed. "Based on these actual figures, you're still very much in the black." Dawn broke as they pieced together the elaborate fraud. James had been systematically siphoning funds, creating phantom debts, and manipulating financial statements, all while positioning himself to acquire Marcus's company for pennies on the dollar once the bankruptcy went through. "Why would you help a complete stranger at 4 a.m.? Marcus asked as they gathered evidence. Ellie's eyes met his. "My father lost everything to a business partner's fraud. No one believed him. Her voice caught. He didn't survive the aftermath." In that moment, something shifted between them, a connection forged in the crucible of this long night. "I need to make a call," Marcus said, pulling out his phone with renewed purpose. "And then I'd like to buy you breakfast." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Marcus's legal team, armed with Ellie's discoveries, moved swiftly. Security footage showed James entering the office at odd hours, accessing financial systems he shouldn't have touched. The FBI was brought in when they uncovered offshore accounts swollen with millions that had vanished from company ledgers. The morning James was arrested, Marcus watched from his car as agents led his former friend away in handcuffs. There was no satisfaction in the sight, only a hollow ache where trust had once lived. You okay? Ellie asked from the passenger seat, her hand finding his. I keep wondering if I could have prevented this, Marcus admitted. There were signs. Small things that didn't add up. That's how these people operate, she said. They count on your trust. My father's partner was his best man at his wedding. Rain began to fall, streaking the windshield as Marcus turned to face her. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, she replied. Just promise me you'll be more careful about who you trust. Starting with you, he asked with the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Especially me, she laughed. I'm the random waitress who hijacked your bankruptcy filing, remember? But they both knew she was already far more than that. The media frenzy that followed was brutal. Billionaire betrayed, screamed the headlines. Reporters camped outside Marcus's home, hungry for details of the scandal. Through it all, Ellie remained his anchor, her practical wisdom cutting through the chaos. When the board suggested bringing in a financial consultant to review company practices, Marcus had a better idea. They want someone who can spot irregularities, someone who isn't blinded by corporate politics, he told Ellie over dinner at the same diner where they'd met. Sound like anyone you know? She nearly choked on her coffee. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Finish your degree on the company's dime. In the meantime, head up our new financial oversight division. People will talk, she warned. They'll say I'm sleeping my way to the top. Marcus reached across the table. Let them talk. We know the truth. What neither of them anticipated was James's determination for revenge. From his jail cell awaiting trial, he orchestrated a whisper campaign, feeding damaging information to business reporters through his attorney. The stories painted Marcus as an incompetent leader who'd been saved by luck, and Ellie as an opportunist who'd manipulated her way into the company. The board grew nervous. Shareholders began asking questions. Marcus found himself fighting battles on multiple fronts. Maybe I should step down, Ellie suggested one night as they reviewed the latest hit piece. Just until things calm down. That's exactly what he wants, Marcus replied, his jaw set. He's trying to isolate me again, make me vulnerable. We stand together or we don't stand at all. The turning point came unexpectedly. James's assistant, a quiet woman who'd worked in the shadows for years, came forward with a thumb drive containing emails that proved the conspiracy extended beyond James. 2 board members had been complicit, hoping to trigger a stock collapse they could profit from. The revelation sent shockwaves through the business community. Overnight, Marcus and Ellie went from subjects of scandal to corporate crusaders exposing corruption. The same media that had hounded them now celebrated their resilience. I never wanted to be a hero, Ellie confessed as they watched the news coverage. I just wanted to help someone who looked like they needed it. Marcus squeezed her hand. Sometimes that's all it takes. As winter turned to spring, the company not only recovered but thrived. Marcus implemented a profit-sharing program for all employees, inspired by Ellie's stories of working multiple jobs to make ends meet. The initiative made headlines as a revolutionary approach to corporate compensation. My father would have loved this, Ellie said one evening as they walked along Lake Michigan. He always said business should be about more than just making money. Tell me more about him, Marcus urged. He'd come to treasure these glimpses into her past, each one helping him understand the remarkable woman who'd saved him. He was a dreamer, she smiled, the wind catching her hair. Built furniture by hand. Had this crazy idea that every piece should tell a story. Her eyes grew distant. After he lost everything, he couldn't bear to start over. The shame was too much. Marcus stopped walking, turning to face her. I've been thinking about something. What if we started a foundation in his name? Supporting small business owners facing bankruptcy or fraud? Tears welled in her eyes. You'd do that? I'd do anything for you, he said simply. But this isn't just for you. It's for all the people like your father who never got their second chance. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the window of his office, watching the sunset over Chicago. James was facing federal charges, the company had rebounded stronger than ever, and Marcus had relocated his headquarters to Chicago, a fresh start in a city that now held special meaning. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Ellie entered, no longer in a waitress uniform but dressed in business attire that suited her new role heading the company's financial oversight division. "Ready for dinner?" she asked with a smile that still made his heart skip. "I've been ready since that night you saved me," he replied, taking her hand. Their journey from that desperate night to this moment hadn't been simple. Trust came slowly for two people who'd been betrayed. But in each other, they'd found something neither expected, a second chance at both success and love. On the anniversary of that fateful night, Marcus brought Ellie back to the same booth in the diner. The owner, now benefiting from Marcus's investment to renovate the place, had reserved it specially. "I have something for you," Marcus said, sliding a small box across the table. Inside wasn't a ring, that would come later, but a key. "What's this?" she asked. "The key to my father's old workshop. I've reopened his manufacturing plant, the one he lost before I made my first million. The workers he had to lay off. I've rehired everyone I could find." Tears filled Ellie's eyes. "Why?" "Because you taught me that second chances aren't just for billionaires," he said. "They're for everyone who deserves them." The Robert Hayes Memorial Foundation, named after Ellie's father, opened its doors 1 year to the day after that fateful night in the diner. Located in a renovated warehouse in Chicago's South Side, it offered financial counseling, legal aid, and emergency grants to small business owners facing crisis. At the grand opening, Ellie stood nervously at the podium, hundreds of eyes on her as she prepared to give her first public speech. In the front row, Marcus nodded encouragingly. "My father used to say that a person's true character is revealed not in their successes, but in how they handle their darkest moments," she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "He never got the chance to rebuild after his fall. But through this foundation, his spirit will help others find their way back." The crowd erupted in applause as she cut the ribbon. Among them were faces that had become familiar over the past year, the diner owner who'd given Ellie flexible hours during school, her former co-workers who now had scholarships through the foundation, even some of Marcus's employees who'd weathered the storm alongside them. Later that night, as they walked through the empty foundation building, Marcus stopped in the main hall where photos of success stories would soon hang. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," he said, suddenly serious. "Something I've been thinking about since that night you saved more than just my company." Ellie's heart raced as he took her hands in his. "I've learned that empires mean nothing without someone to share them with," he said. "And I've learned that sometimes the most valuable things come disguised as ordinary moments, like a waitress offering coffee at 4 a.m. He dropped to one knee, producing a small velvet box. "Ellie Hayes, will you marry me? Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just the man who found his way because of you." Through tears, she nodded. "As long as you promise never to let me look at your financial statements again." Once was enough drama for a lifetime. They laughed together, the sound echoing through the building that represented everything they'd built, not just a business empire, but a legacy of second chances. If you found this story touching, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that remind us how life can change in a single moment. I'd love to know which country you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. Remember, sometimes our darkest hour comes right before dawn, and help often appears from the most unexpected places. The mistakes we think will end us might just be the beginning of something beautiful.